The January 13th full moon in Cancer is asking us to balance our emotional needs with our perceived obligations. We're also looking at a lot of things in Pisces. We're looking at activations with Mars and Eris and Chiron during this full moon. And so there is this very intense emotional undercurrent, both from kind of the passionate, fiery side of Mars and Eris, and then all of this Pisces stuff, and of course the full moon itself being in Cancer. So really, it's a time to be in the space of fluidity, tuning into our emotions without being defined by them. And so whenever we're looking at a full moon, so we'll start with that part of this. It's the sun opposite the moon, and the sun is in Capricorn, and the moon right now is in Cancer, 24 degrees Cancer to be exact. So you want to look if you have any things at around 22, 23, 24, 25, 26 degrees of any of the cardinal signs. So Cancer, Capricorn, Aries, Libra. And so those are the people who are going to be the most affected by this. But of course, this is we're always kind of tuned into these full moon cycles, these lunar cycles. And so what I invite you to do is we're releasing. So at full moon, we're releasing things and harvesting. So we're kind of seeing what has come into fruition, what has come to be fulfilled over the last 2 weeks since we set our intentions at the new moon, and what seeds, even if you didn't sit down and write down intentions at that time, what sort of seeds were planted about 2 weeks ago, and what is kind of sprouting, and what is coming up, and what is ready to be like, okay, this is not working for me. And then we also, probably more significantly, I'd like to look back to the new moon in that same sign. So we're looking back to the new moon in Cancer on July 5th. So what was happening in your life around the beginning of July of last year, of 2024, and seeing how those themes are reoccurring for you right now, and what seeds were planted then, what ideas, what concepts, what emotional needs. Again, we're looking at how Cancer is about how we nurture ourselves, how we nurture others. It's the mother archetype of the zodiac. Capricorn, which is opposite it, is the father archetype of the zodiac. So again, we're looking at balance between those two things right now. But with it, how are we mothering ourselves? How are we mothering others? How are we nurturing ourselves? How are we nurturing others? How are we being, and then we look at the Cancer kind of, we look at, it's got the hard shell because I like to think of it as mama bear energy. It's very protective, especially because this moon is going to be conjunct Mars, which is fight and warrior. But if you put it with the moon in Cancer, you're fighting for what you care about, who you care about, and protecting those you love. So we're putting all of this kind of into the soupy mix of what we're releasing right now. So we want to make sure that we're not kind of letting that Mars energy that's there right now control this moon. Because we want to make sure that we are tuned into our emotional and not our emotional space, and what our needs are, what we're feeling, and not just kind of impulsively acting to protect, and kind of that triggered. We're all going to be very triggered during this, but making sure we're not, and acknowledging them and recognizing that and seeing what we can release around it, rather than feeling like we have to take action immediately, because Mars wants to take action immediately. But that's not our job right now. Our job is to kind of release the things that are no longer relevant to us, or shifting things in new ways. Because I look at kind of some of the things that had happened in July for me personally are very much coming back to the surface right now. And I'm seeing it from fresh perspective. I'm seeing kind of the progress I've made in my relationships, and fine tuning again and releasing the pieces, releasing the parts that are not true anymore. Even though part of my head is going, well, this was true, what experiences, what conditioned beliefs, what conditioned behaviors are no longer serving us and serving our emotional needs. So then again, we look at that opposition then to Capricorn, and Capricorn is the father archetype. It's about structure and responsibility. And so there's a lot right now happening with those. And Capricorn can often be about perceived obligations rather than true obligations. So where have we stretched ourselves too thin because we think we have to be something for somebody else and neglecting our own emotional well-being? And so where can we kind of trim back those, again, those obligations that we have created, false obligations that we have created because we thought this was something we had to do, and maybe it was something we had to do. It is important to take up, and it is important again to find balance between these things. Between, the Capricorn archetype is, I like to kind of phrase it as, it's putting a roof over the head. It's, making sure there's food on the table. It's making sure there's roads, kind of a more broad perspective. It's making sure there's roads. And then the Cancer side of the nurturing, they're both very nurturing. They're both very supportive in a way. It's just the Cancer side of it is about meeting our emotional needs and meeting and taking and, blankets and hugs and lovingly listening to another person and tuning into their feelings rather than trying to fix everything, or rather than trying to create a long-term plan on how we're going to meet these obligations, perceived obligations. I really want to emphasize this idea of perceived obligations, and I really invite you to examine that at this full moon, because so many of us do things because we think we need to, because we've been conditioned. That mother energy, the father energy, the parent energy has been conditioned to say that we have to do things for other people that aren't necessarily in alignment with our own needs. And how many of those things are not necessary? Are we expending energy? Are we expending parts of ourselves? Are we focusing on things that are not necessarily feeding us, are not even necessarily helping those that we are trying to help, because we're so focused on what we think we need to do and not tuning into what the true emotional needs are. We want that structure. It's, again, balance of masculine and feminine, yin and yang. I'm trying to get away from the masculine feminine language a little bit on this, because it's very charged language, and I want to make sure people always understand that whenever I'm talking about masculine and feminine energy, it's more about yin and yang and not at all about gender. But it is about perceived gender roles often. And so perception, which kind of shifts this conversation into all of the things happening in Pisces. And because Pisces is about what we see, what we think we understand. It's about, and often with Piscean energy, we'll find ourselves kind of lost in things that we don't fully understand or are not necessarily completely true. It's just this perception, and we can shift our perception. We can shift our reality by trusting our intuition and trusting what is coming up for us. And so when I'm talking about all these kind of Piscean things, the first thing I want to talk about is kind of the shorter term thing. And I'll get back to some of the Mars Aries stuff potentially as we go through this. But I want to get into that perception part of this. And so the shorter term thing that's happening right now is Saturn will be conjunct Venus at this new moon. So again, emotion, relationships. What do we perceive in our relationships? Our needs are how Saturn is responsibility, Venus is love, connection, um, diplomacy, creativity. And so Pisces, these two planets being conjunct in Pisces, help us take responsibility in our relationships, for the things that are true, and helps us see what is true instead, and helps us release the things that aren't working for us, because Saturn constraints and it feels difficult, but it's constrained so we can be responsible for the things that are most important. So what are the truly most important things, especially when it comes to our feelings and making sure our needs are being met? And then we add in that Saturn, and then we add in that Capricorn, and that structured energy, and creating some sort of well, literally structure for how we um, scaffolding for how we present our feelings and what we do with them when things come up, when challenges come up, or when amazing things come up and you don't know how to contain them, or how to express them in the ways that are best for you or best for your relationships. So letting that be part of this kind of full moon intention setting. And this full moon, and it's not even intention setting so much as I'm in the Piscean brain right now, as it is becoming more aware of these things so we can let go of the parts where we are expending energy needlessly. And then that comes back again to the Mars moon part of this. Mars is about energy, Mars is about action. And Mars conjunct that moon wants to be like, what do we do? What do we do? What's the actionable item right now? How do I move forward? And Saturn and Capricorn are here going, let's make a plan so we're not wasting our time and energy chasing things that aren't for us, or creating problems where they don't exist, or where they'll kind of work themselves out with some patience, and with some timing, and with some, and after, so you prune. It's, we're in winter, so the trees are pruned, things are so that they're not, so the roots have all the energy in them and the life force energy of the plant, and it's not being shifted and wasted in growth in an environment that isn't quite ready for it. We're saving up for spring, when everything comes back to life. And that's the time of Mars. That's the time of Aries. We're in the time of Capricorn right now, which is reserved and holding things in order to make choices and be able to move forward and expend that energy when the timing is right. So tuning into timing. As an aromatherapist, I recommend working with seeds for this to facilitate our understanding of time. And I always recommend green cardamom. Green cardamom is emotional, works on the heart. Nutmeg is very fiery and about kind of seeds. Again, but I really love working with green cardamom for this sort of stuff, because again, heart, seeds, timing, all of that stuff, very important. And then all of that is squaring Eris. So the moon, Mars, and then Sun is squaring, forming a T-square with Eris, and Chiron. And Eris is the represents discord and chaos, um, creativity, rebirth, through chaos. The story of Eris is that she wasn't invited to a party, so she wrote it on a golden apple, to the fairies, threw it into a party, and was like, and the goddesses fought over it, and it started the Trojan War. So it's this truth telling, these truth bombs, like literal truth bombs, that force us to see things, to deal with things, and that what is created through that chaos and what is reborn for us. And so, and it's this feminine warrior kind of Athena energy in a way, where we're fighting for what is important to us. We're fighting for truth. We're fighting for understanding and recognition, and then walking away and being like, these are the things that I need, and and then I move on. And so it's not getting stuck in any of the specifics. It's not getting stuck in the mythology of it, or the story of it. It's just letting things unfold and letting these things come to the surface. And so that's squaring Mars. So there's a lot of fight in here. This is squaring our emotional needs with what is true. Like, what is our truth? What are we seeing? What are we feeling? What are we experiencing? And how does that conflict with our emotional needs, with meeting our emotional needs and fulfilling our obligations, and so, and our long-term plans. And so Aries is in Aries is caught in the middle and create. And so when we find the balance between these things, well, what is true? Because truth is revealed. That's a big part of Aries energy. It's revealing truth. What kind of difficult truths are being revealed that force us to limit our obligations and then embrace our emotional needs, and of course finding balance between all of these things. So the last thing that I want to get into here is the nodal shift. And so the north nodes, shift they go backwards through the zodiac. So they were just in Aries and Libra, and now they have shifted into Pisces and Virgo. And so they shift about every 18 months. And the North Node is about where we're going. South Node is kind of where we come from. And so what we do is we want to, again, it's about balance. Full moon is all about balance. And so much of my work is about balance. Seeing the extremes, experiencing the extremes, and then finding balance in between, and the fluidity between all of those things, which is why I work with the infinity sign a lot. But so the Virgo part of that, the South Node in Virgo, means that we are, again, releasing obligations, releasing this need to fix everything, releasing and let me add a asterisk side note that I like to look at every opposition. So we were talking about Cancer, Capricorn kind of being like this parental energy, mother and father energy. The Pisces-Virgo axis is about helping people and supporting people. Virgo does it by seeing what's wrong and wanting to fix it. Pisces does it by feeling. It's the emotional. So this is, again, the water and earth axis. We've got these water, very feminine energy, water and earth, yin energy, whereas the air and fire are yang, action-oriented, masculine energy. The water energy is fluid and emotional. And so we're moving from that structured Virgo place, that discerning into Piscean energy, which is perception. Coming back to perception. What do we perceive, and how can we shift our reality by changing our perception of the things that are around us? And the North Node, as it comes into this, as it shifts, because again, it moves backwards, so it starts at 29 degrees of Pisces. It makes a very quick conjunction. It comes into conjunction with Neptune right away, and Neptune is about unveiling things and helping us and breaking down the veil between worlds and between what our what a reality between a reality and imagination. And the fact is, the more we become able to be fluid between those two things, we don't want to be rigid, and it's about losing the rigidity of what reality even is. So Neptune pushes our edges. There's no, it pushes our edges, it pushes our boundaries, so it can stretch us, so we can increase our perception, so we can do more things, so we can experience greater uh, peace in a way. Because then, coming back to some of the that chaotic energy that's happening, once we can be the center, we can find peace in the center, and we can shift our perceptions, we can shift our reality. And so this is what this node right now, especially what this nodal shift is doing for us. It's pulling us into that Piscean way of thinking, which is letting things go in and because we see the broader picture, we see the infinite reality, everything everywhere all at once is happening. So the only thing we have is the present. Instead of being really focused, meticulousness, and like, how do I do these things, and the detail oriented nature of Virgo, we're looking at the big picture. And when you look at the big picture, when you look at the ocean, you can float in the Piscean sea in the calmness in the center of the ocean, or you can get caught up in the surf and the waves and be tumbled over and over and over. And so we want to make sure that we are swimming past that, swimming under the water, swimming out from the surf, swimming out into the calmness, and just basking and relaxing and absorbing and tuning into all that is possible, and realizing that the best thing for us is to be present. So I hope this helps. If you'd like some personal insight to this, go ahead, find me at katieshell.com, and I have a great day.